All right, welcome. We are going to talk tonight about migrating TFS to the cloud without losing your mind, and more importantly, with all your data. And this is, well, if you've been involved in trying to get SharePoint to the cloud, to Office 365, many of the guys here at SSW do that, or CRM on-premise to CRM in the cloud, these the experience that you have there will be a very, very different experience to what we're going to talk about tonight. But the end result is basically the same. Now, there's many different ways of doing this. In fact, there's half a dozen options, and we're going to tell you those different options, and then we're going to tell you how we did it. This is a journey that a number of people in this room were involved in, and I'm really happy with the result. And do you know the story, Nick? Because you're in the story. Great. Okay. All right. So here is the agenda. This is how we've broken it down. We will talk about our SSW war story and how it got started, and how a very small task turned into a bigger task. Then the different options we investigated, and there's plenty of them, including third-party options, and what we ended up doing. So, my name is Adam Kogan. I'm Chief Architect at SSW. I'm involved in a number of different custom solutions and a lot of internal stuff. We're a Gold Partner. I'm a Microsoft Regional Director. I think my major qualification for tonight is I am an ALM MVP, as is Daniel.
So yeah, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Daniel and I'm a solution architect here, so I work on a bunch of different projects here, but internally I own the ALM space and everything related to TFS. So I love everything that's happening around that space too. So yeah, like Adam said, I'm an MVP for Visual Studio ALM. And as you've probably noticed, my weird accent. So I come from Slovenia. That's a small little country in Europe. I don't know how many of you have ever heard about it, but we're pretty well represented in this company. Percentage-wise, I think
three.
Yeah, we had 3. So out of 2 million people, 3 worked for SSW. There's still JK. He's a Slovenian too, and yeah, like I said, we're pretty well represented.
All right.
Okay, so let me explain you how it all started. That's JK on the screen, and JK had a very innocent wish. He was like, well, what if TimePro was running on Git instead of on Team Foundation version control? And that was just a simple idea how it all started. So the next day at the daily scrum for TimePro, he comes to Yuli and Nick and he goes like, I think we should migrate all that to Git, just convert Team Foundation version control to Git. And Nick jumps on the idea, oh yeah, that's great. Why don't we just migrate everything in the cloud, because I need that for my Power BI presentation that's coming up in a few weeks. And it wasn't really hard to convince the most technical person in the office, Yuli, who's the general manager, that this is an absolutely top priority.
That's Slovenian humor.
Yeah. So that's how it all started. And yeah, so Nick went on, he checked, what were actually the benefits of TFS versus VSTS. So as you can see, TFS is a great product. You can use it as much as you like. It is scalable. It gives you all control you need, but there's a problem because you have to upgrade it. So in the times when you do upgrades, you have to take it down, so you're causing disruption. It does require maintenance, which you probably don't want to have. And if you want to scale it out, it's quite complex to do it. On the other hand, VSTS is hosted solution. You get updates every 3 weeks, no maintenance, you get Power BI connector, you have secure environment. So the probability, that something's going to happen in Azure or down here, that if someone's going to go in our server room, actually our server room is overheating at the moment. Yeah, something like that is very unlikely to happen in Azure. So Nick went on and he investigated what are his options to push everything in the cloud. And Adam, you want to tell us what actually Nick discovered?
So I'll take you through the series of options that were put to me. Okay, so this is Nick's option. We'll call it Nick's option. Take the latest version, get the latest version, in Visual Studio Team System, create a new team project, copy the code into the new project, check in the code, and you're pretty much done. And in fact, he was able to do this in several hours, and it's super fast. Okay, it's simple. Anyone can do it, even Nick. if you are going, I think we have about it's 270 projects.
Yeah,
they
something
told
like
me
that.
we have, and that would be quite a slow process. Now, of course, Nick would wash his hands of that because he just wanted his project in the cloud, and you know, a lot of those other projects would be junk as well. So there'd be a bit of wasted effort as well. You lose everything but the current version of the source code. I want history. I know I actually don't look at history, and I periodically get the guys to investigate problems. And a lot of the people, like the example project that we were specifically talking about at that time was SSW's TimePro. That's just it's sswtimepro.com. It's just a timesheeting app on the web. We use it heavily internally. It matters to us a lot. And the history of that application goes back to Windows Forms. It goes back to 2002 or 3 or something like that. And there's no Windows Forms left in it anymore. I don't think there's no WCF left in it anymore. It's all Web API, and most of it's Angular. It's probably MVC bits left behind. So there's a lot of history there of unnecessary stuff, heaps of it. So I have a desire not to lose that history of the work items. Sorry, not work items. We're talking about source code and work items. How many people here? It's really important for whatever project they're on now. Let's just say they're on TFS version control. They want to be on Git. I understand developers want to be on Git. How many people would be prepared to lose all history? Can I see a show of hands? One. And Nick, no hand?
No,
Oh no?
the bit I did, I had the full history.
Oh yeah, yes. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm just checking.
So all I had was the source code
No,
history.
don't give me the way you'll ruin the
Okay.
story.
You give him my whole story away. All right. But yes.
You're doing it wrong, mate. You're saying like I'm a cowboy. I was just a redneck.
All right. So I will say, we'll say a quarter of you could give up history if you have to. So anyway, this solution, it works fine, and actually a number of guys in the office have told me that they can give up history and start afresh. And of course, you're allowed to go back to get your history in the TFS server. So it's not like it's completely gone, but we're going to turn that off after 6 months, so it's gone then. My award, I call this the Notepad award, because it's the simplest thing that can work. All right, and it does work, and it doesn't take long. Let's move on to option 2. Option 2 is take the latest version and the work items using Excel. So let's go through this. So it's exactly what we did plus work items, because I wasn't prepared to lose those either. So get the latest version, create the team project, copy the code into the project, check it in Excel, connect to TFS, export the work items to Excel, reconnect to the new account, and then press publish. All right? So this is a better solution than before, because at least we have the source code and the work items, and we're up and running. I will call this, just in terms of summary, the good and the bad. It's super fast, it's simple, it's double work than what we just did to get all that. I think it's important. You lose everything but the current version of source code, current version of work items. It's a nice clean start if you don't, all the people before don't exist and you don't care, okay? So, I'm going to give this award the Notepad++ award. It's just slightly better than what we had, all right? So, option 3. Convert your TFVC to Git. Now, what you can do, we've got 2 tools here. Let me just take you from the first code. So you can clone the code and to a local Git repo. Now, this has no support for branching, and this is the little tool that you can grab. And I believe that some people use this type of tool to, if they want to keep working in TFS, but it's in Git, it sits in the middle. If they're a Git guy, but they have to deal with TFS, they can use this and it kind of sits in the middle. Now this one, from Microsoft does not deal with branching. I think that would probably be a showstopper. So there is this community tool. I'll just show you this one. This handles branches. So it's a Git bridge. Is there any? There it is. Here we go. It's a two-way bridge between TFS and Git. It's similar to Git SVN. It fetches the commits into the Git repo and lets you push your updates back to TFS, and it will work either way. All right. So that's kind of, if you're a Git guy and you have to work with TFS but you can't stand to look at it, you could use this bridge between them. Okay, or the other way around. Okay. So that is the better tool, the community tool. So that's what we would recommend if you're going to go this way. So this is the way you use it. You create your team project, as we just said. You publish the code, and you're done. So it's really, really easy. So you get to keep all source code history. And Nick, that was the way you went, wasn't it?
Yep.
It is slow. You've got to do it for, well, it's very slow to run. How long did it take for
About a
just
week,
TimePro?
Like 48 hours.
48 hours for one project. And that's a project that basically one person works on a bit. It's not like a monster team, and it's periodically we're adding things, and people on the bench work on this. So it's
It
not
did have a multi-year history though.
many years of history.
Yeah.
Yes, and basically it replays everything, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So it's very slow to run that one, and it gets even slower when I tell Nick do it for the other 270 projects. It's done on a per project basis, difficult branching, and you lose everything else. So my verdict for this is the Cobbler Award. This is MacGyver, the MacGyver kind of solution. So you just cobble these things together. And this is what happened from here. Nick, there he is. That's his profile picture, actually. I didn't make that up. Devs only care about source control. I'll convert TFS VC to Git. And he goes ahead and does that. TimePro ends up in visualstudio.com in one big bang. So he had a look at this. He looks at TimePro. He looks at all the history. Look at the nice check-ins all done. It all looks pretty neat. I'm pretty sure he's pretty proud of himself. Everything had worked. He looks at that, looks at dates. Can't see anything too wrong. That all looks good. So he sends an email. SSWOR. VisualStudio.com is now the single source of truth for TimePro, and he probably rocks on his Power BI requirement that he wanted to do. I have a look at that email. I say to Nick, this is not what I approved. We just lost work items, sprints, test cases. I want all history. Okay, and he had just got the history of the source code. Got it? Yep. All right. So I say I want to migrate everything to Visual Studio Team System. Who can bite the bullet? Now here's the problem with this. The job that Nick did is some hours of work and then wait for the whole process to run, and then you've got a solution. That is a good return of investment for some hours. If you want all history, I'm asking for something that is actually an unknown length. You know it's a big length, and we're not talking double the number of hours. We're not turning 3 hours into 6 hours. We're turning into days and days of work and trying and incredibly slow to upload all this stuff, etc. So I say, who can bite the bullet? Nick goes quiet. Daniel says, all right, I'll do that. And here is my goal. I was hoping that they could find a tool to migrate everything. And I'm not talking about everything with low fidelity. I'm not talking about everything where I'd lost associations between my source code and my builds, or lost associations between my work items and my code. You know, all these different associations TFS has. I was kind of frightened of using it. Eric did talk to me and go, well, I don't think we use that very often. You know, is there a lot of value in that? And you know, it's a fair statement. So this is going to be different for everyone. But like part of my request is whatever we do here internally, we are going to do for our clients. And I would prefer to invest in this, find out some decent solution, and then do the same process for our clients. So I want to migrate everything. So it's kind of got funny. We've turned from a single project into Git just so we can use Git, to Nick turning into the single project moving to the cloud, to me saying move everything and decommission the whole server. So I want source control and history, work items, history and associations, test cases, and build definitions and history and anything else that happens to be there. All right. So all roads lead to Rome. This is a slide that Dan gave me. I don't
Well,
know.
I'm European. I told you that I am. You should have known that. In Europe, they used to say all roads lead to Rome because if you want to get somewhere, you're eventually going to end up in Rome. So it's pretty much the same thing. If you want to keep, moving around TFS, eventually you'll have to go in the cloud. So that's why it goes pretty much the same. But anyway, Adam didn't like the slide. He wanted something, that fits his
I think this is a much better
imagination.
image, don't you think? So rip that one out.
So
All
he
right.
banned that slide. He said, I can't reuse it again.
Oh, and it's back. Great.
No, it says tools. It's different.
All right. All tools lead to Rome. Great. And here is what we're going to do. Option 1, take the latest version. Option 2, we've already considered these and discount this, and they're gone. Option 3, convert TFVC to Git, which we've covered, and that's gone too. All right. And option 4 is something worth considering, and I think you guys should know about this because it's not a bad solution. So option 4 is similar to what we just did, but using this VSTS sync migrator. So Martin Hinselwood wrote that. There is another, we'll talk about that. There's also another one called option 5, which is OpsHub. This is the one that Microsoft have been pushing for some time. They've wanted a solution. So this, I think it's a company in India that does this. And well, it has a few problems, and I'll tell you those in a second. There's another one by some other company, Timely Migration, and that's timelymigration.com, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay. All right, and then I want to talk about a new Microsoft solution. So let's go through this. Option 4 is the next option, and that is migrating the code using the way Nick did it, plus moving the work items to using a VSTS sync migrator. So you clone the code, as we talked about, using the Microsoft tool or the community tool, which is, we'd say, use the community tool. Create your team project. Use this VSTS sync migrator for the work items. That's the community tool, and it comes from Martin Hinshelwood. Here he is. It's a extension, and gets pretty good ratings. And this will move all your work items and merge your team projects and into one collection. So if you still want to do it with one project, this is a good way of going. So you run this migrator, you fix the Git commits, and then you publish the code. So here is kind of what you'll see. You download this executable, you fix up your configuration, and then you run. So this one, is this a good option? Option 4, not a bad option. You get to keep all source code history, you get work item tweaking, and it's an extension. So I would tell you it's brilliant if you just want one team project migrated. And that's kind of what I would have leaned towards, because the problem with the other solutions is they go out to Excel. Excel has limitations where it chops fields, it doesn't send up the images. It's not an acceptable way of moving. Where this uses the API under the covers, it's a much better way. It's very slow, very slow. It's complex, you got to deal with those config files. It's still done on a per project basis. And you lose everything but your source code history and your work item history. So you still lose associations and builds and all that stuff. So I still wouldn't like this, but it's the best out there. So what verdict will we give this one? The MacGyver Award. Okay, you cobble this all together and it kind of will work. Okay. So option 5, OpsHub. Okay, OpsHub. You create a new migration. You give it the source and destination inputs. You say what you want to migrate, basically code, work items, and then you select which team projects, which you could select all. You could map the source users and run the validation, see what's broken, inspect those issues. Create a new team project, has to have the same name as in TFS, in VSTS. rerun the validation, and then press run, and when you run the import, you wait until it fails. Our experience with this is that this fails almost all the time, but don't worry, we were running this on the free version. So I guess the way that they think is if it fails and you really need this, maybe if I pay for the premium version, it might work. But to do that, you've got to fork over some dollars. Now, if you have a look at the history, what's preserved, let's look at this one. Originally checked in on here, there's change set. So if you look over here, it turns into a bit of a mess. I don't know, but maybe that's just a bad example, but that's what the history is. It doesn't look inspiring.
As it seems, it kind of creates a sub-comment in there, and then it puts a description in the comment itself. So the history looks stuffed to me. And it's completely stuffed up.
Anyway, so, and you can see the times are different. Okay, maybe that wouldn't worry you, but it's not exactly the same. All right, it's been replayed. So the summary of Oops Hub. I don't know if it's called Oops because it's an Oops. Oops Hub. Anyway, so we couldn't think of any advantages, but the free version hasn't worked for us, and it's a hefty price tag. It's quite restrictive in its configuration. Now, it should be clear, there are people on the web who have got this going on the free version, but the ratio of people that are happy and not happy is, well, it's not 50-50, that's for sure. Okay, so, all right, we've talked about the migrator history not looking so good. So there is one benefit we found, this little cross button. Okay. So, all right. So our verdict of this, the verdict is it's the Dead Donkey Award. All right. Now, all right. Let's move on to the option 6, the timely migration. So this is a company that have just got this together. It's not bad. You create your team project. You configure a session, you select your source and your destination, you map your TFS folders, you run the session, you map your users, and migrate the content. Now, what's the summary of using this tool? You get to keep just your source code history. It supports TFVC nicely. It's still done on a per project basis. It only supports TFVC, so if you've got projects there and Git, you'll be in trouble. It is $2,000, okay? So to run that, you've got to fork out, but it's a solution that's supported. You lose everything but your source code history. So for me, that's a big, big showstopper. All right, the verdict of this one, it's the Obsolete Luxury Award. So basically, I was going to call it the iPhone Award, sorry, the iWatch Award, but he didn't want it because he likes the iWatch. But
actually, it's pretty nice. My wife wears it, so.
All right, I think it's overpriced for what it is, but yes, it's not bad. Does a job, kind of expensive. All right, so if you're half asleep, which I can, everyone stand up because I don't want you to be asleep for this one. Stand up. It's voluntary. You don't have to, but stand up. Stretch a touch. Of course, we want you to be awake for the next one. All right.
No pizza after.
All right. So, we heard about this new tool from Microsoft called the TFS Migrator. And I said, all right, let's investigate this one. We've investigated only a half a dozen options. What's another one? All right. So, when you investigate this, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to have a look at their documentation. Microsoft have built how many pages was that thing?
I think it's 60 pages altogether,
Yeah.
so it takes a while before you get through that.
So you've got to have a look through this, a flick through this, and the guys had a look at this. The documentation is divided into 6 sections. The 6 sections are getting started, the prerequisites that you need to be able to run this. What do you need in, what does your TFS server have to be, etc. Doing the actual upgrade, then doing the validation stuff, then finally getting ready, which is a list of random tasks you have to do, and then running it. Okay, running it is the import or the upload or whatever you want to call it. All right, so this is it. So they have this pre-game thing. So the first thing you got, and I'm just going to give you a summary of the 60 pages very quickly, and then I will hand it over to Dan, which is kind of what happened in real life. Hand it over to Dan. Now, it sounds all right, let's do it. And then he will tell you what the experience was compared with the documentation. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is check our database co-location. If it's not one of these two, which is Latin and general, you can, I don't know if you know these have some meaning. So the CI means case insensitive and accent sensitive. Most people have these, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. Maybe in Europe you might have seen different ones.
Yeah,
right?
probably.
Anyway, that's what it supports at the moment. So let's go through these 6 stages and then I'll hand it over to Daniel. So you choose the data center, the Australian one or whatever. You download this TFS migrator. I'll just go to it. Here he is. So this has guidance and tooling for helping Team Foundation customers import their database. And so this is it. And then you go and reserve your VSTS account. For us, we went and reserved. We already had ssw.visualstudio.com. So we went and got ssw2.visualstudio.com. A couple of guys asked me, why don't we choose SSW1? Because that would get confusing with SSW. So then you request some invitation codes. Now I don't think this will be around for very long. This bit will be dropped. Okay, but for the time being, they're watching every single migration that happens. All right, so we've done step 1. There's not much to it. Check the collation and get a code. So the prerequisites, you've got to go and create an Azure account. And that's, if you've got a Microsoft ID, not a big job. Then you have to configure Azure AD. Usually, stuff like this is just to tell Azure AD you can talk to VSTS. This stuff always ends up being more complex than you expect, but you'll see.
Yeah, in our case it was done by Stan. So Stan's the sysadmin and he looks after these things. It's
all right.
Good to get him involved.
Then we have to sync Azure AD with on-premise. So somehow we've got to get those two in sync. And here is the documentation for that. And you can have a quick look at that. But essentially, there's usually a lot of steps to this. And Stan and Daniel Malik had a look at this. And these are the steps to go through. Okay? And as you can see, there's a number of steps you go.
Thank you, Stan.
Yeah.
You saved my life.
So that is that step. And now the cloud is configured theoretically. We don't know how hard it is yet, but you'll see. Now we need to check our TFS and upgrade if necessary. So you take a backup of that. You need to get TFS. You need to be on TFS 2015 update 3. Who is already on TFS 2015 update 3? So what version are you guys on? Do you know? No idea? Okay, anyway, you'll need to get onto that. Is anyone on TFS 2017? Not a soul. All right, well that is out, so you can. So, all right, so upgrade, what's this?
So if, for instance, you have an environment that is too complex to upgrade, like if you work for a government and they won't let you do that, immediately because there will be a downtime, you can create a copy of the environment, take a backup, and restore that in a different environment and upgrade that one completely in an isolated machine. Then you can move that one in Azure and it's going to work just fine.
Right, okay, so let me just say that in a different way. If one of the if a blocker is that the bosses say, look, we're not prepared to migrate all our production environment to TFS 2015 update 3 first, because you're all on 2010 or something, that shouldn't stop you doing this migration, because when you do it, you just take that and in the one process, migrate it up and then upload it to the cloud. Okay? All right, so this is kind of what they're saying. If you're on 2015, you're good. Now, I guess one of the things I see how we said here just before, to use this tool, you need to be on 2015 Update 3 or TFS 2017. When you go to do this in the future, I don't know, you might do it in 6 months' time or whenever you go to do what I'm showing you tonight, this information then won't be correct because the cloud is always changing. And so since the cloud is always changing, these requirements will change over time. And they've already told us what those requirements will be in the future. So if you already know you're doing it in 3 months' time, you can be guaranteed what's going to happen. I'll tell you what they've told us. All right, so and these are the different paths. If you're on 2013, you have to go straight to 2017. If you're on 2012, you have to go straight to 2017. If you're on 2010, you're in a world of pain. You have to go from 2010 to 2013, update 5, then to 2017. So you've got to do 2 hops. If you're on 2008, you go from 2008 to 2012 to 2017. So most people are going to be on one of these, so you don't need to know what we're talking about. All right, and it gets worse if you're on 2005, but that's the entire thing. That's when we upgraded. That's when we first moved to TFS back in 2005. And if we hadn't touched the server in all that time, well, I can't imagine anybody here would. I don't think anybody at SSW would stay working here. But anyway, there would be 3 hops to get there. So then you need to run your configure features. And this is step 3. So I'll just show you this guy. So there's a whole lot of features that you will want to have once because your TFS team project, it has certain features that won't be turned on because you didn't take the most recent template. So there's a whole lot of things in there. You want to click this thing, configure features, and then say verify. And that's code review, my work, feedback, planning tools, storyboarding, portfolio backlogs for big teams, shared parameters for the build, test plan and test suites, and the bug behavior. Bug behavior is something on the work items which allow bugs to be treated as a PBI or not as a PBI, etc. All right, so just be aware that if you want to get on the latest thing, that's the next step. There is one other way, rather than just use this nice UI, is you could click on this bulk update guide, and the bulk update guide does what we just talked about then, but it will do it in code, what we just did. So you just run some code and it will do it on every single team project. Okay, got that? All right, so, alrighty. So you can't stay on update 3 forever. So what Microsoft did is they issued this sliding 6-month support. So this is kind of interesting, the way that if your company is running a cloud as well, like you're running a service for others, you kind of have to think about these things too. I always find it interesting the way Microsoft deal with this. But let's just say right now you're planning on an update and the bosses say, we're actually going to go live in April. You'd look down here and go, April? Well, at that point, we will need to have our TFS server on premise on update 1, because even though I just told you all you need is 2017 RTM, that won't be true at that point. You got that? Okay. So that will expire in March. Likewise, if you on 2017, that support will only last until June. So if you're planning to do it in July, you'll need to be on update 2. Okay? Or update 1 actually. Update 1, yes. Okay. And the same type of thing. Update 1 support will end in July, etc.
Probably later, but
okay.
Yeah.
And then there's update 2 coming then, and so that's how that works. All right. So now we've got our TFS server. We know what we have to do. We just get it up to date and we should be good. And we take all the latest features of the team projects. What we want to do now is find out if there's any problems in our TFS server. And we need this thing will inspect the database and tell us what's wrong. And we're going to go through this a number of times to get this right. So you run this validation thing. It's called TFS Migrator and validate. And then you review the logs and you fix the errors. Now, you should be able to fix all the errors because it's a pretty new tool. They're encouraging you, if you hit any error that is not there, they want to know about it. So they're saying, please send it to Microsoft. All right. So now we're almost there. Part 6 is you got to map your Visual Studio subscriptions, generate your import settings, update your entities file. This is like a random list of things. Create your Azure storage container, generate a SAS key, update your import.json, and then clean up your old data. So you got to get rid of obsolete projects, or you got to split your collection or stuff like this. All right, so there are all the different things, and I'm not sure if this is a lot of work or a little bit of work. When you look at this, it looks like a number of steps, and so Dan will take you through that. Then you click on your import. You detach your team project collection. You create a DAC pack. That means you turn your database, your TFS database, into a DAC pack, and you upload it to Microsoft, and then they process the thing. So you upload it to Azure Storage, you upload the little CSV file to Azure Storage, and then you click Run Import. All right? So that is the summary of the documentation, and this is the way that we ended up going. You get everything. You call it a high fidelity import because everything is kept together. All right? All association. It's bloody complex. There's six main parts in the 60-page document, and there's like 20 subpoints of each one. So it's not a small task. It is slow. How big is our database?
It was about 45 to 50 gigs, somewhere in between.
So 40 to 50 gigs, and how long did it take to run?
Altogether? So, number of times to fix the validation.
Oh no, assuming the validation is all done.
Oh, okay, so
but just the actual run.
3 hours to get a DAC back, 20 hours to upload it to Azure, and 2 days to get it processed in Azure.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
So it's a task. We couldn't migrate it into ssw.visual studio. We only can migrate it to ssw2.visual studio because each TFS collection becomes a separate VSTS account. So the verdict, I am going to give this the Tesla Award, okay? Because I think this is the best solution, all right? So now we've read all that, I think it is time to do it for real.
Okay. Thank you, Adam. So I'm going to drive you through what was my experience when I was doing the whole thing. The summary itself seems pretty straightforward, but you'll see there was a lot of caveats down the path. So first thing that we realized was that, okay, you can't move everything to ssw.visualstudio.com, so we had to, split the collection, and TFS Migrator takes care of this bit. So there was all or nothing. That was the only thing we had at disposal, and this is how it worked. Oh, by the way, before we actually go down that path, I asked Adam, how likely was our TFS modified at that time, before I started doing that, and he says, oh no, everything is plain vanilla. We only had one project. It was called SSW TFS Smashing Barrier, which was a really nice tool. Pretty much what we did, it showed you how many work items or bugs were related to that page. So pretty much you went on a website, and there was a widget in the web page. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that widget showed you how many work items were actually in TFS for that specific page, which is a pretty good feature. I actually like the idea. So that was the only thing that we modified.
So I don't know if you've ever gone to a page on, say, TimePro, or I think I still might. But if you've ever been to a page on TimePro or a page on your intranet or your website, and you go, oh, I think that button is out of alignment or something. I don't want to report it if it's already been reported. So this actually showed you any work items which were reported for that specific page or that specific Windows form or whatever. So every single one of our team projects was modified at least by one field, and that field was called the URL field.
Okay, so this is how it happened. So, you know, for cloud prerequisites, I have to say big thanks to Stan, because he set everything up for me, so I didn't have to do anything about it, because we were using Azure Active Directory for other things like Office 365 and other stuff. I also didn't have to upgrade because we were already on the latest version, so we were running TFS 2015 Update 3. So I could immediately jump into validation. It sounds like, okay, I'm gonna run the validation and it's gonna be fun. Well, here's what happened. So the first time you run it, it takes about 30 minutes. It really depends on how big is your collection, but in our case it was about 30 minutes. So make sure that you plan a coffee break if you do it for yourself. Then this validation, what it does, it goes ahead, it extracts all TFS project templates, it validates the templates, and it's very likely that it's going to fail. So what do? You open the validation log and you check what errors you have. So when you open that, you say, okay, yeah, it's not too bad, but then you look down and you see, oh, we have 270 projects. And then you see the next thing, oh, there's an error. So when you go down through the log, you see that there are errors every now and then. So just out of curiosity, what do you think, how many of them were successful, how many of them failed? What is your idea? Just guess a number. Go on. 82. Can you give him the microphone?
You can repeat it.
82. So that's one guess. Nick, what's your guess?
228.
228. Okay, JK, you get the last shot.
0 successful.
No way, you guessed! That's the real life. So we had 0 successful projects passing the validation. It was insane. When I opened the log, I was just like, I might, just give it back to Adam, forget about the history. It's gonna be massive job. Anyway, so I went ahead and I had a look what were the issues in there. So there was a lot of broken project templates, and you will see, errors like required element is missing, or process configuration doesn't match, or that things aren't well defined, and so forth. So
Did you have any clue what any of those meant?
I had an idea, just because I have seen those things before, but to a normal user it would be like, oh, what's going on? So there was another thing that I noticed in the log was global lists, and there was an error saying that there are only 32 global lists supported. So I think we had about 37 or something like that. So I had to reduce it down to 32. And the reason why we had so many is, how many of you are actually using XAML build? None anymore. Okay, have you ever used it before? Okay, have you used build at all? Okay. So what happens if you're using XAML build? The XAML build creates global definitions in there, so it stores the information. When you create a bug, you can report, okay, it was in this version. So that's why it creates a global list in there. And you have to get rid of all those global lists that are unnecessary. I'm going to show you later on how. So first of all, how many of you know what is a project template? 1, 2, 3, 5. Okay, fine. For those of you who don't know it, well, it's a list of, how about if I just show you a picture? It's this, and it's an XML file, not just one, there is a bunch of them. So this is just a parent one, and in each subfolder you can see how many subfolders are there, and each one of them has a bunch of XML config files. So that you can see all this in the screen. It's pretty much controlling everything you're seeing here, from build to work items to test cases to source control. Everything is configured through the process template. So how I approached the problem? Well, I knew that Microsoft, after I'd done some research, that Microsoft had some scripts that can download the process template, and then you can patch it with a new version. So pretty much what you do, you go in Visual Studio, you pull down the latest template of each one. So there are three of them. It's a Scrum template, it's a Agile template, and it's CMMI. Each one of them, has been supported through. Well, there were major two, from 2005, and then Scrum joined later in, I think, in 2012. So there are 3 templates in there, and when you open the project template, when you extract it from TFS, it's very unlikely that you'll figure out what exactly it is in there, because some of them are too old, you know, they were not upgraded throughout the history and so forth. So there was a lot of problems with those process templates. So what I've done, I went on and I wrote a PowerShell script that uses a TFS REST API. So TFS 2015 gives me a REST API, and I can use different functions in there. So what I've done, I called the endpoint that pulled down all project information, and from there on I was able to extract some pieces what could potentially the process template be. So I can definitely share that PowerShell script if you have the same problem. And what that PowerShell script did was it created a CSV file, and it was just a mapping. What's the project name and what's the process template name? So one of the three of them. And then I found some scripts from Microsoft that were actually doing that bulk update. So pretty much you could specify, okay, I want to use this process template, and then just apply it to that project. And that's what that script does. So it was pretty straightforward. I just hooked into that system, and this is where you can find those scripts. So if you open the link, you can pull down the scripts, and they give you an idea how you should run them against what collection, what exactly you want to do, and so forth.
Is that 125?
Sorry?
That's 125.
I don't know. Nope. It is. Okay, so like I said, you know, I can do a bulk process update, which is what I was after. You know, I can't imagine, you know, going and manually updating 270 products. I wanted to have something that would streamline everything in one go. So this is the script that I wrote to detect what project templates we had. So like I said, I pull down all project information, and then I look if there is an object in there somewhere saying that there's a product backlog items, and then it's very likely that this is going to be a Scrum template. And if it's user story, then it's probably going to be an Agile template, and otherwise, if it's requirement, it's going to be CMMI. If I can't find any of this in there, then it's going to be unknown, and I found 5 of them like that, but they kind of fit it into the Agile. So I manually, you know, had to look at those of them. So it was kind of interesting to see that, you know, that there were some customizations down in that space. It wasn't just, you know, that little thing for TFS barrier smashing or smashing barrier. It was a lot more in there, and this is what you're likely to find even if you do your own collection, especially, you know, if you have modified things in there. So then what I've done, I loaded that CSV file, and then I did a bulk update on our TFS. And this is the script. This is all from Microsoft. This is the script that actually does the work. So it goes through, it finds the wheat admin. So everything is done through the wheat admin. It's just, you know, PowerShell is kind of another layer doing all that for you instead of you writing all those commands. So using those scripts, I was able to resolve vast majority of the issues. So the next one that I had was work item type has sync name changes set to false.
Sorry, did you use that script to fix all 3 of them?
All those 3 of them errors, yeah, that was mostly fixed by them. Whereas the other one, VS 402841, that one cannot be fixed by the process template. You have to manually, you know, run the command in with admin that will change that flag from false to true. So this is what I've done with the next one. So I went on and I checked, okay, which are the fields that were in there. As you can see, you know, CMMI had most of the problems. And what this command does, it changes the field and it just turns that flag to true against our TFS collection. And after that, I got rid of this one. So the final thing I had to do is to clear the global lists and get it under 32. So as you can see here, you know, if you run this command, it's going to bring back the list of all global lists that we had in there. So this is, you know, quite reduced now. But these are the global lists that we had. So I didn't want to touch those because they were in use by Microsoft process templates, but I knew that I can definitely clear those, you know, build global lists that build definitions created. So those build definitions, like I said, they're coming in here, and this is how they're actually used. So if you ever created a bug, you can associate it to a founding build, and you can say, okay, this version. So that's how it was used, and it's completely unnecessary step now. So I've done the same thing, you know, with admin, just a different command to get rid of the global lists, and then you specify how you wanna, which lists you wanna get rid of, and that's pretty much it. So that's how I got rid of those problems, and after that I was able to pass almost able to pass the validation. There was another problem we had, and this is with permissions. So I don't know what was the consequence, you know, that our product collection, I think it was what's that name? Collection valid users didn't have read permission on the collection itself. So when I went through the logs and I wanted to pass that validation, there was no indicator saying, okay, you should, you know, give it to a specific group. So eventually I found a blog post on Microsoft Pages saying, if you see this pattern here, 4 zeros ending with 3, then this is very likely a TFS security problem, and you have to use TFS security tool, and that's what you do. You run this command and you say, okay, I want to give this identity, and you have to do it for every identity you find in the log file. You have to say, okay, I want to give you that identity read permission on the collection. And after you do that, I think this is going to be a very rare case, but if you ever run into it, that's how you solve it. And after you do that, you're pretty much done with validation. So in that case, I was able to run the command again, and it succeeded. So then, you know, there was the next step in the guide, that was to set up the alternate account. So how many of you are using MSA accounts for VSTS? Okay, 1. How many of you are actually using VSTS already? Few, 3. So the way this works, if you have MSDN subscription, that MSDN subscription is definitely associated with your MSA account, Microsoft account. It's not your Azure account. It's completely different. Office 365 account, name it whatever you want. Those two are completely different. So subscriptions are still, you know, associated to Microsoft account, call them MSA. And then you have work or school accounts, which are, you know, coming from Azure Active Directory. The way this works, if you migrate your TFS collection in the cloud, it has to be backed by Azure, because those identities will be synced across. Which means that once you get online, you will have to either purchase new licenses or find a way how to get, you know, existing subscription, because at the end of the day, it's just a different email address that you're using, but you still want to keep the account, right? So this is the way you can set up an alternate account that is gonna pick up the subscription from your MSA account, and it's gonna work even if you use like your company account. So you don't have to buy new subscription or new license later on. If you don't do that, you'll have to pay for basic license later on, and that's how you can, you know, avoid that thing. After you do that, you have to generate 2 files so that you can import the entire collection in the cloud. You run TFS migrator with a prepare command, and yeah, this is going to run validation first, so give it another 30 minutes, take another coffee break, and then it will spit out 2 files. One is going to be import.json, and the other one is going to be identitymap.csv. When you do that, keep in mind that there are going to be a lot of identities in there. So TFS itself, in our case, found 780 accounts, I believe. There was a lot of old accounts that we never, you know, have seen them after we migrated, or, you know, how old is our Active Directory, Adam?
No, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, it goes back quite a while. So the question was, what are you going to do with those old employees, you know, all those accounts? So there are 2 ways. Either you recreate all those accounts in Azure Active Directory. If you ask Stan what he thinks about it, he'll say it's suicide. Or you carry them over as phantom records. So that means that you won't have those accounts active in Azure anymore, but they will come across for historical purposes. If a person, say we have a Paul Stovall was an employee of SSW, if he ever, you know, decided to sell Octopus and came back working for Adam, we would have to create a new account for him. So that's how it works. So Paul probably won't sell the company, and we won't create a new account for him, so we're gonna move on. So this is what you're going to get. That's the identity map.csv file. And in this file, you'll have to provide, so a lot of these users, you can see that the match here, I don't have the column, but anyway, this is a match column. It says match, no match, and if it finds a match, it will say okay. A lot of users, so we can see here we're down to 750. A lot of them were ghost records, and they didn't have any match. So you can either delete them from the file, and in that case they're going to come across as ghost accounts, or you can give them a stakeholder license, which is pretty much the same thing if you want to keep the history of what was in there. By default, this file is going to have the subscription, so this is in this column. Subscription is going to be set to basic, and you will have to modify that if you want to use something else. Like I said before, if you have those alternate accounts, you can easily put in MSDN account, and next time you log into your newly imported TFS collection, it's going to recognize your MSDN subscription. Everything's going to work fine. If you have any questions so far, if you have, just ask. Don't be afraid. Okay, then we come to the import.json file. So this is where you pretty much define what exactly is supposed to happen and how it's going to work. So the first thing we have to provide is location, where exactly our files are going to be, so that Microsoft know where to pull them now from and to import them. So that thing that you have seen, location, is actually a shared access signature. And the best way to describe shared access signature is to say it's like a time-based backdoor to your Azure storage account, which means you can give people different permissions like read or list or write into that storage account, and it's time-based, so it has an expiry date, and after that time no one will be able to use it. However, the problem is if someone else discovers that shared access signature, they can easily, pull down the data from that storage because it's open to anyone.
How could they discover it?
Well, if you're not, careful where you put it, like if for some reason someone puts it on their machine, and that account from the person who had it on his machine is compromised for some reason. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I've heard stories from Microsoft where the really bad things happened. You actually might want to watch my talk with Sam Guggenheimer. We talked about what happened to Target in the United States, where account of a third-party vendor was compromised, and that's how they got into that machine, and from that machine they got to the other machines on the vendor, and eventually they found a way to Target. Target, the shopping store. So they actually managed to get through a hole. They found it somewhere there. They planned it for 6 months in advance. So they started sometime in June, and eventually, they found a way through. And on a Christmas night, I think they stole about 340,000 credit cards. So the CEO of Target in the US, he had to step down. It was a massive thing that happened in the US. But those things happen. And if in my case, if I didn't blurred that section, someone could go and read that. Actually, that happened on Monday night when we were in Canberra. I had a picture in there that wasn't blurred out, and the other guy who works for Microsoft, Grant Holiday, he just went in and he said, oh, okay, let me see what you have there. He could easily pull down. Luckily, he mistyped everything, but if he was persistent enough, he could pull down what files we had in there. So yeah, be careful about those things, what you do with that. So this is how you generate a SAS token. You can use either PowerShell, and you can specify, okay, I want to generate a SAS token, and you specify what permission. So R stands for read, L stands for list. But that's not the best thing you can do. There's a better way. You can go to storageexplorer.com, and you can download that Storage Explorer, and it's a pretty nice tool from Microsoft. So what do? You can search for a specific blob container. I used a specifically dedicated container to push in our collection, whereas you could have one storage that contains multiple different files. So that's why you have to be careful what you do with your shared access signatures. So this is how you do. You go to that account, you right click on that, and you say, okay, get shared access signature, and then this is gonna bring up a dialog. You specify what's the start time and what's the expiry time. For the migration itself, it's recommended to have it at least a week, but it really comes down to how big your collection is. So you might have to, open the window a bit more. So then you click create, and that's gonna generate a shared access signature, and then that's what you copy in here. Like I said, be careful about it. Guys like Troy Hunt, they're gonna be after you. So the next thing you'll have to specify is where you've put in the identity mapping file and where is the DACPAC file. So like Adam mentioned before, the DACPAC file is your copy of the database in a format that Microsoft can replay on their database. So you're not giving them a back file, you give them something else that is replayable. Then you have to specify what is the account name. So the account name is whatever you want to name it. In our case, it would be SSW2. For this demo purpose, I just used SSW-TFS, and that's pretty much it. Region. This is where you should be careful about it. Microsoft is saying if you want to use your own, if you choose Australian data center, you should copy the DACPAC file to Australian or the closest data center that is to your VSTS, where your VSTS account is going to be created. It's a little trick in here with Australian one. It doesn't work that way. So everything you copy to Australian Azure data center, and your VSTS is gonna be hosted in Australian Visual Studio account, it's gonna go through the US, which means that it's gonna have a huge latency because everything you've put in here has to be copied over to the US first, and then they're gonna play everything back to the Australian data center. So be careful about this one. If you choose Australian data center, copy the DACPAC file in the United States data center. Probably Central US is the best one. Otherwise, you're gonna experience a huge latency. In my case, it took about 20 hours before it finished the job. You can shorten it down probably to less than half if you do that, if it doesn't have to copy everything across. Okay, the last thing you'll have to specify is the import code. So be careful about that one again. You'll get two import codes, and the import codes come from Microsoft. So you're gonna get an email like that, and they're gonna give you a dry run import code and a production one. So the dry run can be reused, and you can run it, I don't know how many times, but I was able to use it twice. Dry run is not gonna create a proper migration. It's gonna give you an idea of what it's gonna look like, but that dry run is gonna expire in about a week. As a matter of fact,
can you turn a dry run into production if you're happy with it?
That's why they give you a production code, and you have to run the production one after that. So you can't change that.
What's the difference?
Dry run is supposed to give you like confidence that this is gonna work.
But doesn't it create a real one? It's just a VSTS account, right?
It does create a real account, but that account does expire. So let me check if ours is still online. I think it was dry run dot. They promised to delete it around. It seems that it's gonna be fine. Something's happening. Okay, so I'm not authorized using my private account, so I'm gonna just switch to Edge for a second. Is that 125? It's not. Okay, there we go. So this is what you get if you run a dry run import. It'll come back.
Can you make it 125?
I think it's 200 now. 135. Oh, why jump back? I've said it before. So this is what happened after I imported everything. So if I click in here, it's going to give me everything as it was on my TFS. I can go and browse the code. I can look at the history, what exactly happened there. So everything is there as expected. I can even look at the shelf sets. It's from 2015, something I never even know that was there. Everything was migrated. If I go here, work items, you can see the board with things that are happening there. If I go to build, I can see the build definition, how many times it passed, and so forth. So everything is there. So the dry run gives you that idea of what is going to be in production, but you can't keep using that one. If you try to reconnect to that one, that's a bad idea. So this is, yeah. Why this jump back? Is it back? Display settings. How do I get to a specific slide? Yeah, and then it puts me back in a different mode.
You just turn it to duplicate.
So when you go home, slideshow, don't use presenter view, shift F5, there we go. Okay, so like I said, the import codes are going to come from Microsoft. They're going to give you two of them, dry run and the production one. And this is what you copy in here. And then you have the file complete. This is one of the steps you'll have to do. So now we come to the import phase. So this is what you do. You go to your Team Foundation Server Administration Console, you click detach, and that is going to detach the collection. Then it's good if you send an email to everyone that this is not working anymore. You know, probably it's best if you do it before. But you can do it afterwards because everyone's going to complain why this is down. So the next thing is to generate the DACPAC file. And this is going to create, like I said, a sequence of scripts in there that Microsoft can replay in their own data center and generate. This is going to take a long time. So it's probably not just a coffee break. In our case, it was about 3 hours altogether. So give it some time. If your database size is, bigger than 150 gigs, it's probably best if you import that via Azure SQL Virtual Machine. So here you can go to Microsoft page, and see the instructions how to do it. In our case, we didn't have to. It was way easier just to create a DACPAC file, but there are instructions of how to do it for different sizes.
Are they is that article the one that says greater than 150 gigabyte?
Yeah, that's the article. It takes you directly to that page.
Right. And what does that picture mean?
Go fishing, because it's going to take a long time.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. Alrighty. So if you're doing, my recommendation is do a dry run import first. So detach the collection, create a DACPAC, and then reattach the collection again. Otherwise, you're going to keep the users offline for quite a while, which is not what you're probably after. After you have a DACPAC file, you'll have to copy that to Azure. So in my case, I used ASCopy because the collection itself was about 37 gigs after the DACPAC file was created. And ASCopy is quite smart. It does things in parallel, so it kind of uses the entire bandwidth, and it's copying things faster. So it's pretty straightforward. You specify what's the source on your on your computer and what's the destination in Azure, and I think you have to provide the keys so that you have right permission to that Azure storage, and that's gonna do the work. If you find that a bit too hard, you can still use that Azure Storage Explorer. You can click the upload button, it's going to do the work for you. So it's not as optimized as the other one. The other one was built for the purpose of moving files around from different data centers and things like that, whereas this one is to give user a nice and friendly interface. Alrighty, so we're pretty much ready to run the import. What happens is that you have to specify where's that file. So remember, we modified an import.json file, and that's what you have to specify in here. And after you do that, you're going to be presented with a login screen. Make sure you type in your work or school account. If you use your MSA account, you're going to end up in troubles. So what happened to me, I got this error and I couldn't get rid of it. And let me show you what I've done. It was quite insane. So you go on and you try to clear the credentials. So there's nothing in there, but it still doesn't go away. So you go and you clear stored username and passwords, and it still doesn't go away. And you go and you clear the Internet Explorer and cookies and everything you can think of, and it still doesn't go away. And you clear Visual Studio Team Explorer cache, and it still doesn't go away. So you switch the machine, and then it works. That's the solution. After you do that, Microsoft actually warns you about that you should, be careful what you put in there. Later, I realized that they create a registry key on the machine where you actually ran that. And it stores the token, and unless you know that key, you're never going to get rid of that problem. So that's why switching the machines was the best thing for me, because it would never go away. So I'm finally ready to run the real import, and here I go. So the import successfully started, and I was quite happy about that for 15 seconds until I saw that email. So immediately after it started, it failed as well. And what happened, it was like, well, they give me that email, but there's nothing in there except that GUID, and I don't really know what to do with that. Give me the error logs, what exactly happened. And eventually, when I talked to the VS Import data team, they came back with this. They said, well, your identity mapping file seems to have a bad format. So I went in Excel, and in Excel I modified that file. Remember when I assigned those licenses, and setting people who will actually be in the Active Directory and things like that. And I don't know how that happened, but it stuffed up the file completely. So instead of using the comma-separated file, it ended up as a tab-separated file. And when I uploaded that, I didn't even check. But the file wasn't in the right format, and when I ran the import, it stuffed up the whole game. So next time, I did it better. So I put in the right file, and this time everything works fine. So now if I log into that VSTS instance, I am presented with the right screen. It takes me to my STS, and I can type in my credentials, and after that I can get to that account. So then I can switch, run around, see different things that are in there. Like I said, you're gonna see everything. This is a high fidelity import. So it was a pretty good experience after all those troubles. So in the end, we're not going to have any more upgrades, no more waiting for the latest features, so we're going to have whatever Microsoft pushes out every 3 weeks, which is pretty cool. And we can decommission our old TFS server. However, one good thing to keep in mind, make sure that you keep your build server. Because build server, you don't want to recreate.
You mean keep your build server on premise?
That's right. That's right. So Adam said, keep your build server on premises. That means that everything you had before is still reusable. If you had to, build custom things, like an example for us would be, we have a few products that are using Wix, so to create MSI packages. And if I had to run that in cloud, I would have probably no option. I don't know if Microsoft have that thing installed, but you might have something else, I don't know, to obfuscate the code, whatever. Something that is in the process, you have to have it installed on your machine, and the build can't do that. But Microsoft doesn't have it. It doesn't look good. The battery is about to run out. So yeah, your build server is going to work. All you have to do is just to reconnect it back to that instance, and everything's going to be fine. I might actually play you, if you want to do it, we're not the only ones who have done it. Shell has a really good showcase. Maybe actually able to run this for you. 2 minutes.
Shell's overall mission is to be the most innovative and competitive energy company in the world. By 2050, our population is about 9 billion. And for that, we need a lot more energy than we need today. Technology will clearly help Shell in meeting these challenges.
We have about 2,800 software developers working day in, day out.
They're solving really hard problems using vast computing resources and big data. We have high-performance computing, advanced 4D and 5D visualization capability. We support 3 million lines of legacy code that we're moving into a newer technology platform based on ASP.NET. We expect to write another 1 million to 2 million lines of code, and so we need a tool that really facilitates good collaboration between those various teams.
Our overall strategy was to move everything to the cloud as soon as we can.
We gathered up our Team Foundation server databases, sent them off to Microsoft where they ran their high-fidelity migration processes and transformed it all into Visual Studio Team Services.
I was pretty unenthused when I heard we had to move to Visual Studio Team Services. Any change is hard. The rollout was phenomenal. We were able to just log on, update, move to the new system. I didn't have to rebuild my code. It's just really easy to work with and to quickly see what is my state right now. How am I doing per sprint, per beta, per release? Our product is developed on 2 platforms, on Windows and on Linux. So we need to make sure that everything we build on Windows will compile on Linux as well. Because Visual Studio Team Services is in the cloud, you can access it from any platform.
Whether it's for Linux, for Windows, for Apple iOS, for Android, for other type of devices. So having access to the latest software releases is very important to us.
The upgrades that we've done over the past are typically pretty disruptive to the business because we have to upgrade the system. Now with Visual Studio Team Services, every 3 weeks there's new functionality without us even noticing it.
We have all of our colleagues accessing the same backlogs, the same user stories, and the test cases are there as well.
We're no longer running our servers. We've removed all of that cost.
Obviously, going to the cloud, people are mostly concerned with security. So the fact that the Visual Studio Team Services had their ISO certification in place was a great benefit for us. Shell is very open about wanting to be innovative and being very competitive. That's basically why we pushed very hard to actually move this to the cloud. We think it's helping our developers a great deal.
Digitalization will transform every part of the company. It will overlay our physical world and make it one world. Whether in the subsurface space, whether in refining space, whether in the trading space, whether in the consumer space, it will transform the whole company.
They migrated 15 collections. Oh, is a new video about to go up? There we go. So just to give you an idea, Shell migrated 15 collections in the cloud. Some of them were bigger, some of them were not. But it, like you know, you have seen in the video, they have 2,800 developers, not just people. 2,800 developers, and you know everyone is in the cloud now. So if you want to learn more about it, you can always check our rules to better migration. We're filling them in, but you know they're growing up. VSTS has many advantages over TFS, and there are many ways how you can do it. Our choice is probably, you know, full migration is the best one. It's really up to you what you're after. Once you learn how to do that, it's not that hard, but it does require some proper planning. You're going to have some downtime, and you probably need some strong nerves, you know, because you're going to hit some issues along the way. So this is what we actually told you today. So you have seen, you know, what we went through. You have seen what solutions we investigated and what we decided to use in the end. If you ever need help, I would recommend that you watch the VSTS import video from Rogan. It's in our rules as well, so if you ever hit the rules, it's in there too. And there's a troubleshooting page that Microsoft provides where they line up all those pesky errors that you're going to hit. If you send them the logs, you know, if other guys are sending them the logs, that's what appears on that page with solutions how to get around. And if you can't get around, give us a call and we'll help you out. So this is pretty much it. Thank you for coming and have a pizza.